Have you ever found yourself in a situation where a lack of a critical piece of information led to you or your team's defeat? Communication in competitive gaming happens to be a major roadblock for most players wanting to get into the scene in an even remotely serious sense. What happens is that there's often a large focus on things like accuracy training and game sense development, which is, yes, extremely important, but what happens when you come up against someone of equal skill who also put those same hours in, but knows how to talk to their team? It's critical to understand how you can functionally both relay and process information that's passed around your team's communication channels. So in short, communication in a team play situation is just as, if not more important, as training, aim, game sense, and other mechanical and technical skill, and it's unfortunately often overlooked. The good thing is, while you can have very complex communication routines that give you immensely precise information, you don't actually need these to relay information in an exceptional manner. And in fact, in my experience, not that I have particularly a ton or the most or anything like that, I find that most people struggle with just very basic things that could lead their team to success, like being able to make a call out while shooting at an enemy, or struggling to make a call out in the moment. Let's say you're under a very tense situation, you've got 3 seconds to say, oh, there's a guy CT ticket right now holding it up, I've tagged him for 24 damage. You know, you've got 3 seconds to make that call out so that your teammate who's, clearing out palace or whatever, he's shooting at stairs, he gets his frag stairs, doesn't swing out and get murked by this guy ticket without at least throwing a flashbang or having someone else throw a flashbang. If I've just called you out, you should feel good because, hey, on the plus side, I have some really good news. We're going to talk about this and how to improve it. And this is actually a unique video in the case that I actually I don't want to say polled, but I asked around my Discord and my Twitter followers and friends and stuff like that, the pitfalls and caveats and things that they feel like they struggle with, roadblocks and things of that nature with communication. And so I'm going to tackle a lot of these. That's not going to be the entirety of the video. It'll be closer to the middle, but that's besides the point. So I'll start off by talking about what makes an effective call out. Ideally, you want to be concise and precise. Spin bars. You relay as much information as quickly as possible with as few words as possible. Next, you want to be detailed, yet not overbearing. You relay a lot of useful information, but with no irrelevant details. Finally, you want to be meaningful and wealthy. You relay important information that has a worth to the situation at hand. A good example of this is, we're going to say this hypothetical scenario. I'm going to take A side on Mirage in a pug match. This means no defaults or just going on the fly. As a support player, I'm calling to the entry fragger that I'm going to flash over the stairs, clear triple, sandwich, and jungle. Let's say our play unfolds here. I make a short call out of flashing stairs, clearing triple, jungle. I wouldn't say sandwich because sandwich is redundant. My entry fragger and my other teammates know that they need to be mindful of where that flash is going to pop, which is it's going to pop in between the wall of the stairs and the wall behind the stairs or whatever. And the entry knows that he needs to not swing too far into the site because jungle will not be clear, it won't be smoked. Or it could be smoked and I'm just going to spray through it. Until I make the paired communication of, oh, triple's clear, or jungle's clear, or, oh, there's someone triple, I can't kill him, or something like that, right? I would make the call, 1 triple. Something very simple as that. If I get fragged on that, 1 triple 52. Things of that nature. I'm going to make it really quick. They know how much damage. Okay, I can swing this. I don't really need to aim head level. If I miss the headshot, it's fine. Go for the spray. It lets people know that they need to be committed, uncommitted, things of that nature. Obviously, you're going to commit on an entry, but like I said, this is very contextual. Moving on to the next point, obviously, this is contextual, and it heavily depends on who is doing what, and this fills general assumptions, the specific example. But as you can see in the clip, this is the entry pathway I would attempt while supporting this entry. And it shows that I'm just filling this kind of role. Now I have to bring up the deathly topic of over-communication and clogged comms. So you've probably heard the phrase jokingly, clear comms, said by a friend, or even seriously in like a match. What that means is someone is talking too much and they need to shut up so people can focus and make more meaningful communications. So I'm a little guilty of this myself because I come from like Call of Duty and Halo and other games like that where there's a lot of uptime and not a lot of downtime, right? So your communication feed is almost constant. It's almost like an 85 to 95% like uptime of talking. You lose your voice after 2 hours type style thing. So a good example of this is if I'm calling out every single thing I am doing, every single thing, trying to provide game sense and intelligence. You simply can't do that. There comes a time and a place where you need to just simply let players play the game. A good example of this is if your teammate's in like a 1vx situation and they're trying to clutch. You could call, oh, behind you, oh, this, that. Sometimes you just need to shut up and let your player clutch. If they lose the clutch, it's their fault. That's just how it is sometimes. They're not supposed to win that anyways. To put this one in simple terms, be mindful of how much you're communicating. Only leave it up to the important information that's relevant to the situation. Fortunately, improving this whole thing is very easy. If you feel like you struggle making callouts in a real situation, what I can suggest is going into like a deathmatch server or a free-for-all lobby if you're playing some sort of arena or arcade shooter. Or, as you can see here, I'm playing Counter-Strike into a community retake server, which is just, it emulates like the bombs implanted. It emulates a post-plant situation. And you could just sit here and make callouts, right? Like, oh, I could call out, oh, there's a guy back balcony, he's jumping back and forth. Like, obviously I'm the last alive here and I get absolutely worked by this guy. But it still serves the purpose that, you know, hey, I gotta make these callouts, gotta practice it. Eventually, it's gonna become second nature, right? And I wouldn't even have to think about it. Like, I do it mentally in my head, subconscious. Well, not even subconscious, I just do it in my head, like, okay, I'm peeking banana. Oh, there's 2 banana, I'm spraying it. I got 1, got 2, moving back to site, rotating off a banana. Peeking CT, swinging CT now, CT dead. You know, I would make these callouts like this in my head. And it's just something that I've ingrained in myself over years and years and years and years of grinding FPS games. And that's just something you can do, so just make the callouts to yourself, even if you sound like a weirdo talking out loud to yourself in an FFA lobby. You know, say like, oh yeah, this, you know, I'm holding mini pit right now, peeking moto. You know, things like that. And eventually this just becomes something you can do in a real situation, in a tournament match, you know, things like that. Very, very important to practice this so that it's just something that you have ready to go no matter what. So I'm going to show off a clip here in a second after this take ends. And you'll hear like just how much attention and direction just a single player providing very basic communication, call out, stuff like that can aid to a team. And you'll notice that I do a pretty standard setup. I just smoke stairs and an entry on a default. And then beyond that, I just let someone else, like, you know, let the rest of the team clear out the site. And I push through and respond to the callouts and just kind of work a flank based on what my teammate has called out. And that gives us the round pretty much for free.
You gonna go?
We just got a 5-stack. Push. Default dead, nice. CT's still smoke. Jungle. Plant.
Default. Watch CT.
Jungle up. CT.
I'm flashing.
That guy is walling his ass off.
What?
Jungle.
That guy is walling his ass off.
So minus the unsubstantiated walling claim, which I'm pretty certain that guy was actually cheating. I have no guarantee, like I said, but whatever. The communication there was very basic, but it got to the point, hey, we call it a guy. If a guy is like, you know, putting pressure, significant pressure on the team, the call it's made multiple times, like CT. You heard Bio say that a couple times. Another notable thing is you heard Vox call where he's planting, and he made another call out to a player on the team where they need to hold so that he doesn't die, or where he's expecting a player to be from. Another call was made that, hey, there's 1 stairs, 1 jungle. You can't hear my mic because it's muted in that clip, but I called out that I'm gonna push through stairs after I kill the guy's stairs, and I'm gonna push in behind and shoot the guy jungle, who was opping our team from jungle. So just play away from jungle or flash it, or, you know, fake contest it, whatever. Which is exactly what I did. I walked behind and put 2 bullets in the back of his head, and that won us the match. And so that's a pretty good demonstration as this, you know, basic communication goes a very, very long way. It coordinates it, it assigns people to jobs, and it, you know, you can really kind of boil down entire rounds just to basic communication when you assign jobs on the fly. And so that's just something to keep in mind if you feel like you're a little lost. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that's professional level, you know, perfect callouts or anything, but like I said, it's serving a point. For a pug, those are perfectly fine callouts, you know? And that could be something you aim for, even as a casual player. So I feel like I've talked enough about how to relay information. Let's talk about the harder part, processing the information. It's absolutely imperative that you are talking to your teammates and not at your teammates. And I'm gonna say that one more time. It's important to talk to your teammates, not talk at your teammates. Relaying information is important, but in a relay there's often a response or a reply. Imagine in the previous clip when Bio was calling CT, and let's say I was positioned at like Firebox or something and able to peek that, I could reply to the CT call by saying like, oh, it's swing CT, you know, swinging CT, and then we both swing it, and we likely just get a clean frag on that, right? If not at least a traded frag, right? Let's say I swing it and I get like head tapped, and he's able just to swing immediately and clean that kill up, right? Because we know where he is, you know, he's not gonna, uncertainty, whatever. But my point's proven here. So I know it can be kind of hard to process a whole team's worth of callouts and play calls at the same time when you're starting off. So I just have a single piece of advice that may help. And that's to listen for key positions in callouts, right? Sometimes people will be a little bit verbose and unnecessary, but hey, that's okay, right? They're just trying to provide information. So what I tend to do is listen for key positions in callouts, things like there's a guy CT, jungle, stairs, numbers, flashing, peeking, there's an opper, stuff like that. You know, key things that I can identify and, you know, put pairs together and be like, okay, cool. I know that there's an op jungle, that means I need a flash or, you know, be ready to fake peek or, you know, maybe just waste their time a little bit, right? Shoot at the wall or something so that they're like, oh, I need to be ready for this, and, you know, gives me like a couple milliseconds to react to something on site. Things like that. And like, I'm kind of getting carried away in myself being a little verbose when giving these kind of tips and descriptions, but it kind of gets you in the mindset of how I'm thinking in the moment. Again, you're not going to be a god at it at the beginning, right? You're going to suck. You're not going to know what the hell's going on. But that's just part of the game. You get better with it over time, and that's just what it comes down to, is practice, practice, practice. So moving to the end of this video, or the closing part, I talked about how I hit up my community and I asked for feedback and things that people felt like that are pitfalls or roadblocks with communication, or things that they've run into that they feel like are problems that are not ever addressed very well. And so I'm just going to rapid fire these. This was taken today, so there wasn't much time on feedback on this, but yeah, I'm just going to address them one at a time and kind of give my anecdotals on it. So I'm going to say it initially here, a lot of these are going to be having the names cut out and stuff like that because social anxiety is a thing. And I didn't actually mention that a lot of these were going to be used in the video. But yeah, this is by Frankenberries, I know he doesn't care. It says, #1 issue I've run into is when someone on my team mentally gives up. The game's absolutely winnable, but in their head they go, F it, and pretty much throw. How do I pull that person out of that mindset? Once one person gives up, it spreads to the team like fire. This is something I actually really agree with, and I've had to deal with this multiple times myself. A lot of people have this thing where they'll make like one bad play and they'll be in their head the whole time, or they'll just be so mentally reserved on this fact that, oh man, this guy, you know, he's owning me. And the best thing that I find to do is I try to work with that person myself. I'm like, hey, what can I do to help you out? Like, how can, you know, what can I do? How can we change your play? What can I assign you to do something else? Like, can I have you maybe like not entry, or maybe do a different role of support, you know? And that's the best thing you can do, right? And be like, yo, this is so doable. Like, we got this shit. Especially if it's a realistically winnable situation. It's super important to kind of have your teammate and be a good teammate, you know? A lot of times in like these pugs and, you know, like trials or whatever, you'll see people, they'll lose like 1 or 2 rounds and they'll be like, WTF you doing, right? Instead of like, hey, how can we change up our strategy, you know? They're not good teammates, they're just good players. And a good player is useless in it, you know, against a good team. That's just how it always goes. This is a good starter. And this next one's by Cool Cheese, and he says, a big thing I think most people don't focus on is how your comms affect the mental of your team. Whether randoms or a consistent squad, a single of this game is so bad. Can lock you and your team into a negative loop, not to mention cluttering comms. For me, it's tough to lock in if I can tell my teammates aren't all the way in the game. Eliminating complaints mid-game helps you, yourself, and your entire team maintain good mental and get to flow state faster. So this is actually a really good point. And I remember watching this FaZe versus Epsilon in the LBF in COD Advanced Warfare. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Maven who said something like, when a player's talking, when they're communicating, they're calling out, they're engaged, they're mentally in the game, they're there to win, they're there to play. When someone's complaining, they're like, oh, whatever, they're quiet, you know, they're not engaged anymore. They're not trying to be an active player, they just want the match over with. And this goes hand in hand, why I put it after the previous one, is because it's super, super important to kind of have yourself always engaged. So the next time you or your teammate or whatever is feeling, you know, kind of down, you're like, whatever, man, I just want this over with. You know, you gotta tell them, yo, let's just call, let's just focus on the game. Call out, right? Tell them just to be calling out, no complaints. And that's why sometimes you'll hear me when I'm playing with my friends, I'll be like, guys, we're quiet, we're not calling out, right? Because it shows that we're just not engaged, we're not there. Now, this might be a personal, like, philosophy thing, but that's my take on this. So this is another one here. It says, trying to give advice to people on what they should watch out for, or in general, trying to be a shot caller with random/a new team has always been a struggle for me before. Because I know sometimes people get very defensive about it, quote, do it better then, or I know how to play the game, etc. So yeah, this is a tough one, and I'll break it up into two parts here. When you're talking about giving advice to people, especially if it's a pug environment, your best bet is just to kind of be like, hey, can I give you a piece of advice, or can I suggest something? And if they say no, then that's the end of it, right? You just move on. But if they say yes, obviously you want to try to construct that in a constructive manner so that you're not tearing them down, but you're trying to add something to their repertoire. I remember this one time I was playing a pug in ESEA, and a player in advanced was like, hey, can I give you a piece of advice? And he wasn't trying to talk shit. He just knew I was fucking up, and I didn't know it. And he, gave me a piece of advice on CT side for Inferno and holding Porch, and the rest of the match I was popping off. And I was like, yo, thank you so much, man. And I remember that to this day, even though this happened so long ago. On the whole shot calling for new teams and stuff like that, you kind of gotta have that, I guess you just need a social awareness, right? If no one's making a play call, just be like, oh, or if it seems like there's kind of, it's up in the air, like, oh, you guys want to go banana? Just be like, oh, yo, let's go banana, yo, let's have this, smoke CT, smoke coffins, let's molly off secret, let's push this fight, let's do this shit, man, let's fuck these kids up. Sometimes it's just a social situation thing. Sometimes, people are gonna get defensive, they get defensive or whatever. I mean, it's like, hey, I'm just, trying to keep our team orderly, right? A lot of the time, you're gonna have to be like this problem solver, diffusing of a situation kind of person. Most times, people are just gonna be like, hey, someone's, taking the charge, I'm down with that. If someone says that your plays are bad, just be like, hey, alright, you can make the plays. And sometimes there's just always gonna be problematic people. It's just an unfortunate part of it. Especially when you're talking, again, pug environments. Alright, so the next one is unfortunately from Glow, and he says, my favorite thing about teaming with our group, he's one of my friends, like Drewski, Wormy, and Cammy, is that we can all be critical with one another mid-game and not take it personally. We all know we're talking about the play and not the person, and this is something that fucking everyone falls into this pit trap too. Because it's often hard to take that critique not personally. It's hard to not take things personally from a stranger, right? It's always going to feel like, when someone's critiquing you, like, oh, he's talking shit, he's saying I suck. And sometimes you do just suck, right? That's the reality of the situation. Sometimes I make stupid plays, and my friends will tell me, hey, that play sucked, you should have just did this. And it's hard for me to be like, you're right, but it's hard to accept that, but sometimes it's legit. That's not saying people aren't going to be malicious to you, because that's just not true either. People are going to be malicious, they're going to be toxic, they're going to be cruel. But some people, they don't have any ill will in mind, and that's important to keep in mind. So an example of this is, like if we're playing like trials or something, or I'm playing with my friends, and we just fuck up. This happened actually yesterday or the day before. Bai was making a call, let's push B, normally IGL, but obviously he's going to take the reins every once in a while if he feels like he knows the call to make, and I trust that. I trust my teammates to make the calls. And I was set up towards checkers on cash on B. We pushed B, we had site control, they were like backed up to heaven, they were backed up beyond tree room, and he was just making the call, hey, let's just play the site, like, let's get the full site control here. And two of us, we kind of messed up, we split off. Two of us, I went to hold vents and checkers, and I thought the rest of the team was just going to be somewhere else. We had a guy in B main, and so we only had like 2 players on site because one got traded out. So that means we only had like 1 or 2 guys actually on the bomb site, and they were just able to take it back super, super easy. And it was just this tragedy of the situation. And it was a situation where he was like, why didn't we just like play the site? He was a little upset. And I was like, hey, that was the right call. And he wasn't, he wasn't shit talking us. He was just saying, hey, that play was dumb. That was such a winnable round. That was so easy to win. And that's just the situations you gotta take, You want to build as a player, you have to learn to not take these things not seriously, but like personally. And that's the most important thing, is being able to take these things in constructive form, not critiquing form. Obviously, critique can be constructive, but you get what I mean. The next one is actually kind of interesting. They say, I think for me it's definitely, once I finally get the hang of knowing all the callouts, not describing it accurately enough, like stairs, behind the pylon, etc., without it becoming a short novel. So, okay, this comes down to, and I can tell this is like a Destiny thing, this comes down to the callouts not being properly known, or precisely identified, because a lot of the callouts in these other games where they don't have a very strong competitive scene, they're extremely vague. Like, they'll be like, pillar, and then that pillar is like the whole area. It's like a 50-meter at range, whereas there's like this shortcut, sidewall, jump up, under jump, boxes, D1, D2, P1, P2, things like this. And this is why these things are named this way, so that's more precise. This comes down to like I almost want to say like a regulatory thing where there's not one general accepted thing or one generally, dictated thing. So now you have these 500 different callouts and all of them reference different places. And what I would suggest is just call the best possible thing you can and move past it, right? Now, you don't need to call the exact pixel coordinates of a player because you have to trust your teammates to be able to, actually use their brain and, be able to aim their mouse or controller or crosshair or whatever they want to use, Atari flight stick at the enemy and pull the trigger multiple times to win, right? That's, ideal. So, just keep that in mind. Doesn't exactly have to be pixel precise coordinates, but precise enough to give a pretty precise general area as to where a person's gonna be, so they know what to do. It's important to remember that you're calling out enemy positions, not calling in an airstrike. So this next one's actually pretty interesting, and it's a tough one to deal with. I was gonna put it earlier, but I feel like it deserved to be on its own. So the roadblock for me is dealing with teammates who rage, which hinders communication. I always try to keep the next life, next game approach, but it doesn't work all the time. And this is a hard one to deal with, solely because people are volatile. You don't know how someone's gonna react. The best thing I can do is step back to what I was talking about with being a good teammate. You gotta talk to them, be like, hey man, like what's up? Why are you upset? Let's stay focused, and then you can rage after the match. Like talk your shit, whatever you want. But let's, get this dub first. And the best thing you can try to do is empathize with them. Not sympathize, but empathize and be like, hey, yeah, that's kind of lame, but, try to re-engage them with the match. That's what I try to do. It doesn't always work. But you just, you have to empathize and let them know, like, hey, if you keep raging, like, it's only going to get worse. Like, we're just going to keep getting wrecked. There's a winning, there's a case where we win here. Some people, they're just gonna be scrubs, like it's legitimate scrub mentality. They'd be like, oh no, they wouldn't be that good without that, and that, there's nothing you can do about that. Their mind is set, and that goes along the lines of what I said with the volatility of humans. Sometimes people are just unstable, and that's just how it goes. So these are gonna be the last two that I do because this video is getting very, very, very long, and I don't want us to go on forever and ever. But these two correlate, they're from two different peoples. So the top one says, the best example I have, and they linked the video and I'll show it, won't show it, but I'll talk about it. I'm listening to sound cues, to where the guy is, and we have no cameras or intel. This is Rainbow Six Siege clip. Where the last guy is, but the other dude is dumping information that isn't necessary since I can hear the enemy's footstep. And unfortunately, V Blood Drunk had the reply and says, knowing how to shut the fuck up and resist the urge to clog comms with garbage like complaining how you died. So these are two very similar things that fortunately correlate to each other that I can talk about, which is Poggy Woggy. So there is a thing, again, we go back to the over-communicating thing. If you're dead, make your call out, that's important, shut the fuck up. Especially, and we go back to what I talked about 20 minutes ago with, if your teammate is last alive, I know you want to help, I know your teammate might want to help if you're in that clutch situation, but the best thing you can do to help them is when you die, make your call out based on your information and stop talking unless it's a critical piece of information that was clearly missed. Like, abundantly clear that it was missed. Like, oh, he picked up an op and there's no way that person would know. Something like that. Beyond that, if your teammate's in a clutch situation, let's say like a 1v3, you talking's not gonna help that situation. Let them play, let them clutch. Don't backseat them. It doesn't matter who it is, just don't backseat them, let them play. If they lose that clutch, I mean, hey, that you shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with, but it's unfortunate. But hey, yeah, you gotta let them play. The same thing with knowing how to shut up and resist the urge to clog comms with garbage, like complaining how you died. Complaining when you die in like a tournament situation, that's life or death. Those are critical milliseconds and seconds that, oh man, what a bitch, like fucking learn how to do anything but op, kid. It's like, yes, I have my moments where I say that, but it's like matchmaking and we're at like, a 7-0 lead. Or it's, like I'm playing trials and I know the round's over. If it's a tournament situation, or like a real, at stake situation, it's like, nah, I'm silent. I'm like, oh, post it up top left with the rift, like, a precise call. Obviously, I wouldn't say top left since that's, or non-orthogonal, but you get what I mean. It's super, super important to not over communicate, or else you're gonna throw your team down the fucking dumpster. So I didn't want this video to be another 30-minute video, which unfortunately it seems like it is crossing the 25-minute threshold. Besides the point. If this one gets some traction, and I feel like I didn't cover things, and people mention, oh, you didn't cover this, I'll make a part 2 of this that covers these things, and I'll even probably like a part 3 if I feel like I need to specify and specialize on certain things, like, I don't know, communicating post-death or something like that, right? That's besides the point. I wanted to get this video out for like 9, 10, 11 months at this point, but I wasn't sure how to formulate it, and I figured why not, you know, just slap it together here, get a video out, spend some time editing it, spend a few hours, whatever, and, you know, be done with it, and, you know, make a sequel or a prequel or a, I don't know, a squeakquel. Besides the point, again, I'm pretty bad at ending videos, so that's really all I have to say. If this helped, that's awesome. Recommend it to a friend. My YouTube channel is getting shit on right now because I'm not posting Destiny content because the PvP in that game blows penis. And that's all I really have to say. I appreciate all you guys who are still stuck around at this point in time. You know, maybe I'll be looking back in a year from now and be like, ha ha ha, how funny. But yeah, that's all I gotta say, boys. I appreciate it, and I will see you later. Remember to keep the positive mentality, and yeah, I don't actually mean that. Bye.